Welcome to Decoding Leadership, where we break down the elements of humane and effective leadership. I'm your host, Jade Rubick. This week, I'd like to talk about the magic of small things, delivering small mini features, fixing bugs, the things that make the difference between a product being okay, sometimes being terrible, and a product being wonderful. I'm working at a company right now where we recently did this new experiment, and we called it Tiny Thursdays. And it went really well, and it was really interesting. And so I'd like to share the results of it with you. Tiny Thursdays, as the name implies, is about tiny things. Those little pieces of work that are hard to schedule, that are often things that don't get done. Things like polish, things like little mini features that would be really valuable. Let me tell you a little bit of the context, this company that I'm at. The company's name is Campus. The engineering team at Campus is great, but they're quite small. There are only a few engineers and way more stakeholders actually than there are engineers. And there's way too much work for the size of the team. So it means that realistically, there are so many different projects that we'd like to do, and all of our stakeholders are always feeling like they're waiting in line for things, because they are. And part of the problem is that a lot of the work that the team has to do is actually fairly large. There are some really big deliverables, some really big impactful projects that the team is delivering on. And even though our team is focused on delivering things very incrementally, we're doing things like delivering things as mini features and vertical slices using milestones. Even though we're doing all these things, it often feels like we're not giving to our stakeholders as much as we'd like. And so the CEO of Campus, his name is Jade, and he came to me and he pitched this idea of Tiny Thursdays. And he said, look, there's all these little things that we could deliver, and a lot of them are just very small things. And he gave this example of this little navigation change that he had asked an engineer to do recently. The engineer had done it and everybody just loved it because it was like this little tweak that just made everybody's life a lot better. And it was the kind of work, like that little example, it was the type of work that to prioritize, it would be really hard to put that at the top of the list. It's not very much work, but prioritizing it is almost harder than doing it. And so it just becomes a part of a big stack of other things. And when he pitched this, I was intrigued. I was like, oh, this is actually very interesting. And actually his timing was really good because a problem I was working on at the time was that we weren't actively managing our bugs. And so basically only the most urgent bugs would get any sort of attention at all. And so we weren't even like really triaging them. We weren't even really deciding what to do with bugs. And so like a lot of teams, we had basically this Jira database of ever increasing number of bugs. And that didn't feel good. I think that's always a bad sign. So that was like something I was working on. And when he pitched this, I was like, oh, this is also like a way that we could handle our bugs. And the way he pitched it is he said, what if we took one day a week and during that day, we only focused on small things that we could complete within that day. They could be, at the time, he was mostly focused on features. So he was like, we could do lots of little things we notice, things that are bugging us, things that our stakeholders are asking for. And he actually had the complete idea. He was like, you put out some sort of a form for people. You say, hey, if there are little things that you'd like to suggest it. We put those on our list. We have a list of things that we'll just work against. And then we get as much done as we can within a day. It's a little bit like a hackathon where you're just getting lots of little things done. And so I thought about that. I was like, yeah, that actually sounds pretty awesome. The trade off potentially is that a fifth of our time is taken on small things. But actually, that seems really valuable because we're not investing a lot. So we tried it, and I'll tell you a little bit about how that went. So, as I was thinking about Tiny Thursdays, one of the things that I've thought about a lot is that generally product teams find it very difficult to prioritize small things. I think the reason for that is that prioritization has overhead. And there's almost like a minimum size of something that is necessary in order for it to really be prioritized effectively. Anything that's smaller than that, it's almost like a waste of time to prioritize it. It's not totally, but if, for example, if you are just prioritizing stuff based on value delivered divided by effort, and you're not even doing that very rigorously, you're just thinking about it that way. Like the effort of small stuff is always small, so it seems like it should rise to the very top. But I've noticed that even teams that are prioritizing this way, the small stuff still doesn't rise to the top. And I think that's because we tend to undervalue small things. We don't actually see how valuable they can be. That's my hunch. It seems to me that sometimes you can deliver these small mini projects that often deliver as much value as bigger projects. And that sometimes creating an alternate stream for the small things actually unlocks some of the value of the rest of the work. It like removes all the sand from the gears or something. So what we did, we created a form that is the same form that we use for our feature requests, but we publicized that form and it basically adds it to this database. We do a very rough prioritization of it. The prioritization really is intended to just pull out the things that we think are like really vital or should happen first. But that's about it. I basically think ideally we're going through these things and we shouldn't have to spend a lot of time prioritizing them. Then every Thursday, the way it works is the team alternates between doing bugs and small items, small features. And the small features can be the things on the list. They can be things that are bugging them, that they've noticed customers having issues with or our stakeholders wanting. But generally, they do honor the prioritization. And the criteria for doing something on Tiny Thursday is that it's tiny if you can ship it by the end of the day. It's tiny if you can ship it by the end of the day. I just love that. So the aim is to do lots of things that you can deliver and review and get out by the end of the day. So that was Tiny Thursdays. We've done this now for 4 to 6 weeks, something like that. And how did it go? People love it. It's gone extremely well. People have, like, I've seen a lot of praise for the team. The perception of the team, I think, is actually a lot better because people are seeing a lot of just little things come out. It's also improved the amount of like requests and feedback that we're getting from the rest of the company because they're seeing like more response to the things that they've requested. And so not just the small things, but everything. We're getting just better feedback on. We did find that it was really important to communicate all these little things, and tracking all the little things was actually a little bit complicated. One little tip there, that this is just a weird thing we started doing. We added a status field for this in Jira, but basically there's this status field that is after something is in production, has been communicated. And so we're actually like tracking whether or not we've communicated to stakeholders the work that we've done. And if it doesn't need communication, then we just move it to has been communicated. But it's been a very explicit way of making sure that everything that we've done is communicated out to the right people. I would say, let's see, what are some challenges we found with it? One problem is that everybody thinks everything is a candidate for Tiny Thursday. If somebody just asked for a Tiny Thursday thing during a leadership meeting, and they asked for what I think would probably be the biggest project in the company's history as a Tiny Thursday item, that it's become almost like a little bit of a joke. Can we do that for Tiny Thursday? So there is a little bit of unrealistic expectation sometimes. So I think it's very important to be very explicit about the expectation that any Tiny Thursday item doesn't come with associated like timeline. We do it when we can, and there's no sort of commitment of when anything is going to get done. But that's Tiny Thursdays. I think it's really worth checking out. I think I probably will use it on other teams in the future. And it has really seemed like a really wonderful change. It would be something I would recommend. So try it out. Let me know what you think. And also, if you've done any sort of variations of this, let me know.